Hey TechKnowStuds, in this video we're actually going to go over the commands used to roll out HSRP. So let's take a look at that. So to set this up, we're going to actually have to add another layer 3 switch. So what we have right now is we have this network set up right here. What I'm going to do is all the items in yellow and this switch 4 right here, we're going to add. Now we're going to let OSPF do its thing on this side of it, so it can automatically change the way it's routing based off of OSPF. So we're not concerned with that level. But what we need to do is we need to set up on this side 2 virtual IP addresses on these switch virtual interfaces. And then once we do that, then we also need to connect physically all of these different links here. Now there's a lot of programming that happens on here where we need to configure these new interfaces on all of these switches and set it all up. I'm not going to cover all of that in this video because frankly, the exam, the CCNA exam, isn't going to require you to get really in depth into all of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump onto those switch virtual interfaces. We're going to go over a few commands, a few show commands, and then end things at that point in time. We're not going to implement any of this long term. This is just going to be for the demo for this purpose right here. All right, I'm on HQ-S1. This is the layer 3 switch that we have been working with. I'm consoled into it because I'm going to lose some connectivity as I go through these commands. Down below, I'm pinging the switch on the other side of the network so we can see when I lose connectivity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by going into the global configuration mode. I'm going to get into interface VLAN 10. And in interface VLAN 10, right now the IP address assigned to it is the virtual IP address that I want to use. So I'm going to have to take that off as being the main IP address. But before I do that, it's going to complain that I have the secondary set and I need to take the secondary off first. So I'm going to take the secondary IP address off. This is where I lose SSH connectivity because that's the IP address I was SSH'd into. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the IP address that I want to use as my virtual IP address. I'm going to give it the new IP address, and I'm chose to do .2. I noticed that when I did that last command, it lost connectivity across the network. So I'm going to give it a new IP address. So I entered the new IP address in, so now that's .2. I can put this secondary back on, so I would be able to SSH into it again. So now I've got that set. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the standby group. So I'm going to have the standby group of 10.1.10.1. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to copy it, I'll paste it into here, and so it can become the standby group. So I'll enter that into there. And even though it says standby, this is going to become the active shortly. It's going through those states, those different states. It doesn't want to step on any toes just in case there's another device out there that's already responding to this. So once it determines that there isn't, it's going to start pinging and we're going to get connectivity, and there it goes. So it's gone through all the states and it is now active. I also chose this group, so it's group 10. It doesn't really matter what group this is. I chose 10 because it's part of VLAN 10. So that's why I put that in there. Next, I'm going to set the priority. So I'm going to set the priority to 120, and that makes this prefer as being the active. So now that is set. So now I've got all the commands set up on this layer 3 switch, switch 1. So now I have to configure the other side of this. So I've set up HQ-S4. So now I'm on the other side on switch 4. And what I'm going to do is get into the global configuration mode of that. And what I would do is I would set up need to get into the interface. So let's get into interface for VLAN 10. I need to give it an IP address that needs to be different than the other one. So I'm going to choose .3 on that. And then I say that this is also standby group 10 with the IP address of 10.1.10.1. So now that's going to be the virtual IP address. Going to get that into there. I want the priority of this to be less than the other ones. So I'm going to choose 80 on this one. The default is 100. So this is less than the default there. Get that entered into there. And then I also want this to relinquish control if the other one does come back up. So that's this preempt command. So I'll put the preempt command in there, and then we are all set. So now this virtual IP is being responded to by the active one, and then what I could do is I could unplug that real fast and then make sure that this fails over to this standby. So that is HSRP and the commands for HSRP.